Welcome to How to Interviews, presentation by me once again. So today we're going to be talking about how to do interviews and what are some good practices for things that you should prepare for in your interview, before the interview, when you get into the interview, during the interview, and then after the interview is over. So starting with the most important part of the interview, and that is yourself. Before the interview, gotta know yourself. Gotta know your strengths, gotta know your weaknesses, and you should know your experiences as well. And by this I mean, make sure you have a few ideas of major impacting events in your life. And your strengths, you should know things that you're good at doing. And it may not be the most common strengths. You don't have to be something like, oh, I'm good at teamwork. You can say, I've got a great strength for doing this one little specific thing that you're good with. Or, you could have you've got a good strength for listening to people, but then taking that listening and doing something with it. Another thing to notice is you should note down your weaknesses. You should make sure you have an idea of one or two things in that you know that you're not too good at, and you can admit that. That's always a good thing, being able to admit something that you're not the best at, that you would rather have somebody else take care of. Like, one example for me is I am not good at reading instructions all the way through. And I admitted that in one interview I had, and my interviewer laughed at me and said, yeah, our manager does the same thing. And all of these strengths and weaknesses are usually found by your life experiences. So you should have defining life experiences. Maybe not defining, but things that you can reference back to and say, this is an example where I use my strength, or this is an example where, yeah, this is my weakness, but this is how I made up for that weakness and made sure that I still did my part. Next, you should know your interview. You want to know who is your interviewer, and if it's with a single person or a panel, where are you interviewing for? So if you're interviewing for a fast food restaurant, know that going in, the interview is probably not going to ask for too much beyond very basic information because you're a fast food restaurant. There's not much going on there. And especially tying into where are you interviewing, what position are you trying to obtain in that interview? And this gets more important as you go into more specific fields. So, for example, me, when I first interviewed, it was a fast food restaurant, and I knew that I was going in there for just like the basic high school work experience. And you're just getting a job, earn some money, get that experience in the field. I wasn't looking for too much. And then when you going to more after you've graduated your secondary education and you're going into you're an adult now, go to the workforce. Every interview is going to be different, and they're going to ask for different things because each company is hiring for specific positions. For example, me, I would go for an interview at a software development company or some company that needs software developers, and I'd be looking at a software engineering position. So I would gear my knowledge towards software engineering, while if somebody was going into creative design or story writing, they would gear their knowledge towards those aspects of what they expect the interview to be focused around. And now, common interview topics. You find past work experiences will be brought up. Where have you worked, if you've worked at all, and especially if you're going into your first job or something, saying that you can it may not have been like a job, but saying you did a specific set of tasks that you worked for your parents or something to do a specific set of tasks, follow instructions to complete an objective. It shows that you have the responsibility and the independent thinking to be able to take a set of instructions and follow them and complete, and then you'll have a finished objective. You should know your strengths and your weaknesses, as explained previous, because they're topics that people ask about. Times you worked as a team. That's a big one that I seem to think that a lot of interviewer people get. They want to know, are you capable of working with other people? Because in an interview, they can teach you how to do your job. They can teach you whatever specific task you need to do for that job. They can teach you how to work at a register. They can teach you how to do whatever task that you're getting hired for, but they can't teach you how to work in a team. They can't teach you how to interact with other people in an environment and get things done. So they're looking for people who can do that. They're looking for how you handle conflict. They say, where has some sort of conflict happening in your life? How did you handle it? And what did you take out of that? Because if you find somebody who says, there was conflict and I gave up, they're not going to hire that person. They don't want somebody who just gives up at the first sign of something going wrong. They want somebody who can take a look at the situation and find a solution even though it doesn't seem like there's a solution in sight. And then, as I said previously, knowing your position, they're going to ask you about position-specific topics. If you're going into a social media position, they're going to ask about social media. They're going to ask, what experiences have you had with doing social media before? If you're going into a fast food restaurant, they're going to ask, have you had an experience working in customer service, working in a fast food, or working in a restaurant? So knowing what position you're going in for is a great idea because you'll know a bit about what types of questions they'll be asking you. And another important thing is what to wear. It should be business casual unless otherwise told. Sometimes you'll get your email saying this is when your interview is, this is when your situation is, and then they may say this is what you should be wearing. This is what type of dress you should be wearing. Usually they don't say anything. It means business casual. And what is business casual? I know this is a hotly debated, like, what the heck? What do I wear? And really it should be what you see somebody day-to-day office wear. If your parents go to work in an office, what do they wear day-to-day at the office? Nothing fancy. You don't want a suit or a dress. That's overdressing. Should be solid color shirts. Polos are good. And they should be tucked in, using nice pants or other nicer leg wear, but not something that you would associate with casual wear, such as jeans or shorts. And closed-toed shoes. No matter what you're doing with it, closed-toed shoes is a must. And finally, what to bring to your interview. You should have a positive attitude. You should have a pen with blue or black ink because you never know when you're going to be asked to fill out paperwork, and it always shows preparedness saying, oh no, I've got my own pen. You don't have to worry about getting me one. And it's not necessarily always needed, but having something that you can write in, say you jot down a name, you jot down a phone number, and something like that, small little notebook, but nothing like big or fancy, that's always a bonus. Now, preparing for an interview, really the best way to do it is to practice. And just the more you practice, the better you'll be at interviews. And it's something you pick up with time. Now, having a family member ask you some common interview questions, and if you need help on what type of interview questions people ask, Google it. There are plenty of resources out there that have questionnaires, like this is a common interview form, something that's out there. And you can have somebody else ask you these questions about an interview. And just maybe you can't have that happen, so go do some interviews, get some job interviews done. Maybe you don't get a position, maybe it goes horribly, but the act of having an interview is going to give you more experience, and you'll be better at it the next time you go and complete an interview. Now, the second part here is the interview itself. We just covered what you should do before your interview, and now we've got the actual interview. Now, entering the interview, you want to give a firm handshake. Introduce yourself to the person or people. If it's a panel, there'll be multiple people. Give all of them a handshake, but a firm handshake. Do not be the person who takes somebody else's hand and lets your arm lay limply, or pinches their fingers with your fingers. Don't do that. Just do not do that. It is so annoying as somebody who's receiving the handshake, and it's just a bad handshake in general. Don't do it. You want to grab a firm handshake. If you really want how tightly you should be gripping, because you shouldn't be crushing their hand, but like, say you're gripping a controller. That's about how much you should grip the hand. 1 to 2 shakes, that's all you need. It doesn't have to be flailing your arm up and down. And just quick, firm handshake. Introduce yourself. If you know the interviewer's name, introduce yourself, and then say the interviewer's name. Use their name during the interview and during the beginning part. And small talk is not bad. Ask them how their day is doing. If they've had a good day so far, ask them, just introduce yourself, because interviews are conversations. So, you're getting to know the person who you're going to be interviewing with. So, ask them how their day's going. Don't be afraid of having small talk with them. They're a person too. And in an interview, if the interviewer offers you something, like a drink or something, don't be afraid to take it if you want one. I mean, sure, sometimes you just don't need one. But if you want a water or something, it's fine. It's not bad to take something that is offered to you. Now, during the interview, there's quite a few things that you would want to make sure that you have in mind. Doesn't mean you have to focus on them or you have to follow them strictly, but you should have them in mind. Interviews are conversations, as I said. It is a back and forth between the interviewer and yourself. You're supposed to be discussing the topics of the questions. You want to make sure you're having eye contact when you're talking, of course. You don't want to be staring off into whatever's going on in the background or looking at a wall. And that's a part of staying respectful. Make sure that you are addressing them with formality, because if you get hired, they will be your superior. So make sure that you are addressing them with the respect that that position would hold. Make sure you ask questions if you're confused about something. As I said, it's a conversation. If they ask you a question and you're not so sure about what the question is asking, ask a question. Say, I don't quite understand what you're asking there. Could you expand upon exactly what you want me to respond with? Something like that. They're just getting to know you. The interview is not how good you are answering pre-filled questions. If they wanted that, they would have sent you a form and told you to fill it out. The interview is judging how you think, how your personality is, how you act. So pause and think about things. If you need a time to think about something, and take the time to do it. If you want to pause on a question and go and think back to your life and figure out where this question has influenced you, do it. They're not going to mind. Now, granted, don't spend forever thinking, but pause. Make sure that your answers are articulated and have meaning behind them. Don't just stutter all over the place because you didn't take the time to pause and think about what you're going to say. And have personality. As I said, this isn't a questionnaire that you just fill out. This is a conversation where the interviewer is not just judging you about the questions they're asking, but they're judging how you respond, and they are judging how you are as a person. So, don't be afraid to have personality in your interview. Finally, after the interview, make sure you thank your interviewer before you leave the building. If you can, get the contact information, which you may already have their contact information from before, but having the contact information is good for 2 things. 1, you can write them a thank you letter. As soon as you get home, write them an email and say, thanks for the interview today. Just that's all it has to be. It's just, thank you for taking the time to give me an interview today. And it was nice to meet you if it was the first time meeting them, or something like that. Short and sweet. Send it. Because I guarantee you that you are not the only person that they are interviewing for that position. And by sending that thank you note, it puts you on their mind. Not only does it show that you understand that you are connecting with them on a personal level, and you are thanking them for the job that they were doing, which was interviewing you. Also, by the time they get that email, it'll probably be after they have done the interviews for the day. And if there's one person who will stick out in their mind the most, it'll be the person who sent them a thank you note. And 4th, if it's been a week or so and you haven't heard anything, follow up with the company. Whether it's the interviewer themselves or if you're calling the store that you interviewed with. Follow up, ask about the interview. Hey, I'm just checking in. Do you know when I will hear something about getting the position or not? It doesn't have to be, did I get the position? But ask when will I hear something? And those are all good things to do after your interview, because it puts you in the interviewer and the company's minds, and it gives off a good impression that you actually care about the position that you're trying to get in. It's not just another check, I've applied for this job. Well, that's all I've got for today, and just a few more things that you should keep in mind. Again, the most important parts of this presentation: just know yourself. It's always a good thing to know. Be respectful during your interviews, and always say thank you. So, I hope you all have a great week, and good luck in any interviews in your future. And this is Soyvlin, signing off.